Aha, we are live. Hi to everybody joining. On today's live stream on TikTok, after my 7-day ban for being a naughty boy, we shall talk about that. I had a 7-day ban, even though TikTok agreed my video was within the rules. Didn't break any rules, but they still banned me for 7 days. We'll talk about that today, along with a few other things, no doubt. Yeah, keep hitting the like button, please, to everybody who's joining. If you could smash that like button, that's what the kids say, isn't it? Apparently that attracts more viewers. At least that's what it's saying. And yeah, we'll wait for it to get up to a few dozen watching, and then we'll start talking about my recent ban and the fact that I'm back after it, because I don't like talking about bans and the way social media treat independent media, because there's a part of me that's like, oh, here we go, another person bitching about the algorithm online. But before people start saying that, when I am complaining about it, they need to understand that this is the censorship of this is the censorship of alternative narratives that is happening before our very eyes. And we'll talk about that anyway. Yeah, please keep hitting the like button. Hi to everybody who's joining. So yeah, I'm back after 7 days of being banned on TikTok. I was banned for my video on on the gentleman who was dragged away by police for saying that Prince Andrew was, quote, a dirty old man. He was bundled to the floor by some people in the crowd, pushed away, and then the police dragged him away. He didn't do anything wrong, and he was charged, that man was. I'm not sure whether he was de-arrested afterwards, but he was charged. But my video was basically showing people that and saying, look, what do you think about this? Here is a person upset with Prince Andrew. And he's got right to be upset about it. And I understand there were a lot of sentiments saying now is not the time, etc. And okay, we'll come to that in a minute. Now is not the time for him to heckle Prince Andrew. Well, when is going to be the time then? And I just made a point in that video that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked children. And we know that they trafficked children to some very high-profile people, actors, singers, that sort of thing, maybe even presidents, who knows. But we know that they trafficked them to these high-profile people, and they went to prison for them. Jeffrey Epstein was in prison when he died. We shall say that, as if he did die. The jury's out, it seems. Many of you don't believe so, and I'm yet to be convinced, to be honest. I find it difficult to believe anything that unless my eyes see it and my ears hear it these days. But, they traffic these children to these high-profile people, and the FBI have those tapes. They recorded these instances for blackmail purposes, we assume. And the FBI have those tapes. They know, essentially, who they traffic these people to. But nobody, as yet, has faced any consequences. Obviously, you could argue that Jeffrey Epstein is dead. You could argue that. And you could argue that Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. But we haven't seen any pictures of Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, have we? In fact, the only picture that we've seen of Ghislaine Maxwell since the whole trial began, an up-to-date photo, apart from the one at that In-N-Out burger, was an artist's impression of inside the court, a drawing of her. So I just pointed out in that video, isn't it strange how nobody is screaming about that? These are children that were trafficked to these high-profile people by Maxwell and Epstein, and nothing happened, seemingly. Nobody's faced any consequences. None of these people that they had children trafficked to them, that the FBI have tapes of, has been prosecuted. However, if you shout at one of their friends during a funeral, people will push you to the ground and drag and a policeman will drag you away. And I was banned for that video. Now, I appealed it, and they instantly reinstated the video. You can go and watch it. If you go to my page on TikTok, you can see it's there. However, they have put a sensitive thing on it. You can't even see the caption. So they've said it's sensitive information, this is. You know, I'm just telling people the truth. I didn't mention any word that could be construed as sensitive or anything, and they still put a sensitive label on the video, meaning that it killed the views it was getting. It had got thousands of views within 20 minutes, and then when they reinstated it, it only got a couple of more thousand. It's only around about 10,000 views. It got like 5,000 in the first 20 minutes before they pulled it down. So this is the censorship of information. And even though TikTok reinstated the video and agreed I was not to blame, didn't actually break any rules, any of their rules, I still had to serve out my 7-day ban during the week of the Queen's funeral. What do you think about that? What do you think about all that? What do you think about social media companies here silencing any criticism of certain subjects that are factual? What do you think about social media companies silencing factual information here? This is other social media. They are interfering in public discourse. They are interfering in the very mechanisms of democracy here. It's quite interesting when you see these social media companies, and it's not just TikTok. Twitter are the worst. Well, Facebook are the worst, but I don't go on Facebook. Facebook to me is just a giant spying apparatus for the US intelligence services. It's pretty much all it is. But yeah, Twitter is pretty much the US state-affiliated media. They silenced obviously the Hunter Biden laptop story a week before the election. Had that story come out and they didn't, call that Russian disinformation, who knows what would have happened during the 2020 election, So, yeah, I'm back after a week of a ban for doing nothing wrong. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's fair that these social media companies are arbitrarily doing this and doing it to people who are trying to tell the truth when the empire are just lying to them non-stop? And we're going to talk about the lies of, well, not the Conservative Party, the Labour Party in this country today. And we're going to talk about the Labour leaks and the Al Jazeera documentary on it. But let's just go into the comments and see what you think about this ban for pointing out factual information, for pointing out, nobody that Maxwell or Epstein trafficked children to has been prosecuted. Nobody. Apparently Epstein and Maxwell trafficked children to nobody. Are we supposed to believe this? Are we supposed to take this? Are we supposed to take these people trafficking children to the elites who are making laws and making millions? Is that fair? It's certainly not. It certainly doesn't. It isn't conducive to a fair and open democracy, is it? And Maxwell was living off the pension money her father stole from my grandfather. It just says TikToker there, so maybe you're in jail in Twitter, in TikTok jail too. Obviously Ghislaine Maxwell's father was Robert Maxwell, and he had a very colourful history. Obviously, allegedly committed suicide after jumping off a boat. Mr. Mixmaster says, when social media censor, it's just a tool to control the narrative they want. This is very true. In the 80s, if you Google or you type into any search engine, don't Google, use something else. If you type in Operation Mockingbird, you will see that there was there's credible evidence to say that the America had an operation. The American intelligence firms had an operation to basically infiltrate the media, um, and you could say that they don't even do that. They don't need to do that anymore because the intelligence services are the media. If you actually look at their media over on cable TV over in America, they're all ex-spooks, they're all ex-CIA, ex-FBI, John Brennan, Clapper, these people who were proven liars have now got jobs on their media channels. But nobody's watching them anymore. That's the problem. So because nobody's watching the media as such anymore, and they're getting their media from social media, that's why now censorship has happened on social media. I started this right at the beginning of the censorship when it happened, and that I believe it happened just after 2016. You may remember if you watch any progressive media on YouTube, something called Adpocalypse, when they literally just took away everybody's ad revenue on YouTube. And I remember just how much it crushed independent media, and they thought that obviously that could. I mean, they obviously did it to control the narrative that way, but fortunately, a lot of independent media then went over to Patreon, and viewers, supported them through Patreon, and we could continue doing what we were doing. I was only at the very start of it there, so I couldn't build enough of a base up, of a following before the censorship just stifled any growth that I could have on those channels. It's why I kind of like TikTok so much, because I've grown, they haven't stifled me as much, and I've grown to 120 odd thousand subscribers. But that comes with a cost, and it looks like I'm going to lose this account on TikTok at some stage in the future, through no fault of my own, and not because I'm spreading anything incorrect. It's just simply because they are censoring the truth right now, and they're doing it at the behest of power and to some degree governments. So this is why I say to everybody, go to my website and sign up to my mailing list so we can keep in contact, because one day this avenue of me talking to you is going to go away. I can almost guarantee it. They have tried it with everybody else. Mate, you're deluded. All these apps are owned by the same people. Says, why am I deluded? Says Assad. Why am I deluded? I've just said all these apps are owned by the same. Have you not listened to what I've said? UAH91. Can you shout out my brother Michaelis? Hi Michaelis, how are you doing? Ken Kimalenki says, I heard both Biden and Trump have sons with fingers in dodgy Ukrainian pies. I haven't heard Trump, but I do know that Biden and Pelosi and John Kerry and there's some other congressmen, etc., who have their families over there in Ukraine. If you actually look at Hunter Biden, he was on the board of Burisma with other people, within that sphere, making a fortune. Why was he on the board of a Ukrainian energy firm, Hunter Biden, after being thrown out the army? Gets a job on. Obviously, his dad was point man for Obama back then, and this is what happened. And you can go on YouTube and you can see videos of Nancy Pelosi's son over in Ukraine as well on TV talking about soccer. These people are just, there's all sorts of scams going on there, obviously, and there's a lot of money to be made. I'm not saying that they're necessarily doing anything illegal as such, and I have to say that for legal reasons, but it's pretty much obvious they've all got, they're all making money out of this. And it's like I've been saying, this stuff in Ukraine, it didn't happen in the last 6 months. It's been going on for over a decade. I haven't heard about Trump having anything in Ukrainian pies. And here's the I'm sure that if Trump's sons did have fingers in Ukrainian pies, everybody would be talking about it. Strange, isn't it? When it comes to Biden's son and Pelosi's son and John Kerry's son and their family members, nobody really in the media sphere wants to talk about any shenanigans that their families. But you talk about Ivanka or Donald Trump Jr. or any of them, and it's open season, isn't it? The hypocrisy's insane. I love trickle down economics, says Adzi. I think he's being facetious, don't you? UAH91 says there's no such thing as free speech. Once people don't like what you're saying, you'll be silenced. There hasn't been, there certainly hasn't been free speech in this country for the last 5 years. You know, if you're critical of Israel online, you get shut down pretty much immediately. And that's what I want to talk about today with Labour, because, yeah, there's a big story breaking about Labour, and we'll move on to it because Al Jazeera last night published the first of a 3-part documentary on what they call hashtag Labour Leaks, the Labour Leaks scandal. And it's I'm going from the Electronic Intifada here. Their headline on the film says, "New bombshell film exposes the Israel lobby's role in the UK Labour Party." Now, if you have been, following things for the last 5 years and following, my channel on YouTube and the reports that I and many other people have done on this, quote, anti-Semitism crisis in the Labour Party over the last 5 years, will know that I and many others believed that it was all a scam. And I and many others believed that it was anti-Semitism in the Labour Party was exaggerated and accusations exaggerated against, well, anybody left-leaning in the Labour Party, leading to the suspension of Jeremy Corbyn and leading to him not being chosen as Prime Minister, and basically, highlighting that we don't have a democracy in the UK. We have an illusion of one. We have 2 right-wing parties that are pro-Israel, and we don't have any anti-war party. We don't have any, pro-worker party in this country. And we've got a first-past-the-post system where either Labour or Conservative will be running the country. That's the situation that we've got. We don't really have a choice on anything. And the documentary by Al Jazeera really does highlight it. And I'm certainly glad that the first part was released last night, because it vindicated everything that I've been saying and many other people have been saying over the last 5 years. One of the first people that I went to have a talk to when I started doing my podcasts, I went and I visited Derby and I talked to Chris Williamson, who many people will know was a Labour Party member for 40 years, I think, maybe even 50 years, although he doesn't look that old, Chris doesn't. And I interviewed him about his expulsion from the Labour Party and the media coverage at the time. It was total lies. It was total lies. They lied about him. The BBC lied about him. The BBC repeatedly said that Chris Williamson was suspended from the Labour Party for saying that the Labour Party had apologised too much for anti-Semitism. And that is not what he said. You can go and look at what he said. It was at a meeting of Momentum in Sheffield. And what he said was, for an anti-racist party with a history of anti-racism, we have backed off too much and we have given too much ground in the face of these attacks. He didn't say that we'd attack. And obviously it was misconstrued. It was misreported by the BBC and many other places in the UK, the Times, the Telegraph, the lot. And he got, his life destroyed. 40, 50 years in as a member of the Labour Party meant for nothing. And he was cast aside. He was thrown under the bus. Even Jeremy Corbyn threw him under the bus, didn't really support him at all. Because of these people within the Labour Party that were working against the Labour Party's interests. It cost Jeremy Corbyn the election in 2017. And it pretty much cost, for the last 5 years, the Labour Party's status as anything close to trustworthy, I would say. The way other people in the Labour Party. You've got to go and watch the documentary on Al Jazeera. It's on YouTube. The way they treated accusations of anti-Semitism by anybody who was progressive, so to speak, and then when the way they treated accusations of bullying or harassment on anybody who was pro-Israel was night and day. There was a guy called Luke. What's his name? Luke Stranger. Luke Stanger, his name is, and this is a pro-Israel sort of grassroots organizer. And Israel lobbyist Luke Akehurst. It's insane, this is. There's a lobbyist for Israel on Labour's NEC. On their board, there's a lobbyist for the Israel getting paid, literally getting paid by Israel, the state of Israel, on the board of the Labour's ruling board, the NEC. Luke Akehurst, his name is. He intervened to help save a suspended right-wing Labour activist called Luke Stanger from expulsion, despite a series of complaints of harassment and intimidation. You need to see the documentary. What it seems like to me is the Labour Party is being run like a mafia. And people like Luke Stanger, if you know any way about the way the hierarchy in the mafia is organised, people like Luke Stanger is sort of like a capo on the streets. You know, he's there and he's basically an enforcer. He's there to cause up trouble, to whip up trouble, to make accusations against people, and, you know, to basically scare them and silence them. And it's done with support of people on the NEC, like Luke Akehurst. It wouldn't be difficult for me to say, oh, well, you know, you can look at that and see how this is organised, can't you, with a nudge and a wink. And then before you know it, anybody who's pro-Corbyn gets accusations of being a racist against them, and the media run with it. The documentary starts by talking about Angela Eagle and how, I mean, remember she instigated what was known as, I think it was called the chicken coup against Corbyn. She actually tried to stand against him at one point. And apparently there was a meeting, I think it was in 2017 or 2016, in her constituency, and she wasn't there at the meeting. It was a meeting of her own CLP and she wasn't there. And somebody sent her an email the day after saying that somebody had called her limp-wristed because she's apparently gay, although I didn't know that. And they said there were accusations, homophobic terms being thrown around against her. She ran with it, took it, you know, complained to the hierarchy, and all the media then latched onto it. It was leaked to the media. All the media latched onto it to say, oh, well, that, you know, there's obviously homophobic people in the Labour Party, and they're all trying to go against Angela Eagle because she's obviously an adversary of Jeremy Corbyn. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nobody in that meeting could say, yeah, that happened. Al Jazeera interviewed people in the meeting. They're like, no, that never happened. One guy was suspended from it and had to have his suspension overturned. He was suspended for 2 years. These accusations were just accusations of four accusations by four people, three of whom had the same surname. So, you know, that was ran with, even though there was no evidence of it whatsoever. And it turns out that it was untrue. This is a mafia organisation that has no problem with calling anybody racist or homophobic or weaponising the very things that they say they stand against. They say they stand for equality, and they stand for gay people, and they say they stand for the worker, and they say they stand for, you know, human rights and free speech. Meanwhile, they're working behind the scenes to kneecap anybody who actually is for those progressive policies. And nobody in the media, in the mainstream media at least, is talking about this today. It was aired last night. Now, the second part of this documentary is on Saturday, and the third is on Monday. But the second part apparently focuses on the BBC and other media's role in all this. And they were culpable. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I covered this for 5 years, and I was certain that this was a witch hunt. I was certain that what they were doing was silencing and dismissing and expelling and smearing and attacking anybody who was in Labour, who was pro-Palestine or was critical of apartheid Israel and Zionist policies and critical of the Zionist influence in our politics in this country. And it highlighted it to me that on the day, and it highlights to me the most, on the day, I think it was the day before that, it was 2 days ago, the day before the documentary was aired on how Labour were treating people who were, critical of Israel in their party. The day before, a Jewish woman was elected to the member of the NEC, their ruling body, and they suspended her because she was a Jewish woman critical of Israel. This organisation is not fit for purpose. The Labour Party is not fit for purpose. It needs to die. It needs to go away. It is not truthful. It is corrupt to the core, and it attacks good people and ruins their lives to the point where these capos on the street for the hierarchy in Labour are smearing and attacking them online and saying awful things about anybody in their sights, his family, threatening them, threatening to behead them, threatening to dig up their mother so they can skull them. But the Labour Party turn a blind eye to all that. And anybody doing it and culpable of it, they have an investigation and they are cleared of all wrongdoing. Meanwhile, anybody critical of Israel and critical of this is smeared and silenced and ejected from the Labour Party. This is an anti-democratic institution that we are looking at here. This is an organisation that would quite happily shut anybody up by any means necessary who is telling the truth about the crimes of apartheid that Israel, the Israeli government and Zionist influence in them is guilty of. Make no bones about it. They have no qualms with making up stuff to discredit and smear anybody highlighting this, whether they be in the Labour Party or outside of it. It is undemocratic. It is quite simply a mafioso-like organisation with a former director of public prosecutions at the head of it. What does that tell you about the corruption in this country? That the former head of a DPP is okay with all of this. A former head of a DPP that, by the way, didn't prosecute Jimmy Savile and extended Julian Assange's torture in the Ecuadorian embassy when he was chief prosecutor. Anybody, I'm telling you this now, there are good people in the Labour Party. I know it. I know. There are good Labour Party MPs. But right now I am looking at all of those MPs and I'm thinking, if you're not standing up against this and you're not saying anything about it, and worse, you're still in the Labour Party and you're still getting all the benefits from it and your safe seat and you're just silent on this, then you're the goddamn problem. People like Richard Burgon and people like Apsona Begum, although she's just come back from her harassment that Sakir ignored. People like Zara Sultana. I am looking at these people right now and thinking, you're good politicians. But where's your principles? Where are your principles? Why are you not talking about this? Why is this not? Why are you not demanding answers from your own party on this? And why, after all that they've done over the last 5 years, knowing, as I know, that this has been the case for 5 years, why are you still in an anti-democratic party? A party that doesn't give a shit about its members. A party that this documentary has highlighted will actively move against their own party's interests. Whatever their party decide or vote on doesn't matter. The Parliamentary Labour Party, the MPs, will overrule it. It's sickening that this is happening in my own country. It's sickening that it's happening over here. I never thought for a second growing up that our free speech and our human rights would be taken from us like this. And the Labour Party are helping it happen. Yes, the Tories are doing it, but the Labour Party are there along with them, supporting them as they do it. It's a fake Punch and Judy show that we're watching here. It's not a democracy. It's a shamocracy. It's an oligarchy. With, and on the one hand, you've got bigger energy companies and all the rich elites and the bankers and what have you owning the Conservative Party. On the other, hey, you've got the pro-Zionist Israeli lobby. Just basically there to keep the left in check. It's become the UK's version of the Democratic National Committee. It's not fit for purpose and it needs to go away. And if you're one of these people who think, oh, we've got to vote Labour because the Conservatives are so bad, then I need to tell you something. If that's the case, and an opposition party is so terrible, but you have to vote for them because the other side is just worse, then that can be set up. That can be manipulated. That's how it works in America, and now it's how it works over here. It is quite astounding. Please go and watch the documentary if you haven't already on Al Jazeera. It is astounding to see not just everything I've been reporting on vilified and vindicated, and other people as well. There are great journalists out there that have been reporting on this for a long time. Friends of mine like Johnny McElroy and Mohammed El Mazi and others like Asa Winstanley, they have been, and Jonathan Cook. These people have been writing about this for the last 5 years. Go and read their work. I've got video after video on YouTube about it. And it's vindicated everything that we were saying. Everything. But remember, for the last 5 years, we have been smeared by the people who have lied about this. We have been smeared about people who have lied about the people who have lied about this, that we know now we can prove lied about this. And we can prove that everything that we were saying all along was true. They're silent on it. Where's their apology? Apparently, this second part of the documentary on Saturday, as I say, is highly critical of the media's influence on this and the way the media reports things. And that's where I've been the most critical over the last 5 years. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of my reporting is vindicated based on this. But have I got a contract anywhere? Have I got any money coming in whatsoever? None whatsoever. None. I'm on benefits. I'm one of those people that the Tories hate because I'm on benefits. I'm on universal credit. Self-employed on universal credit. I can't claim my Netflix subscription back as expenses, but the people in the House of Commons can. Everything that we have been saying has been vindicated, and they are silent on it. They're not saying a goddamn thing. Not even the politicians in the Labour Party who I respect. And you have to ask, if that's the case, what's the use of them then? Are they in the Labour Party literally because, the protection that the Labour Party provides them, knowing that they've got a safe seat then and they don't have to fight for their seat as an independent? If so, wow. What have you been doing for your constituents if you're afraid of leaving Labour? Where can you watch the the documentary, says James? It's on YouTube. Go to the Al Jazeera website. It's on there as well. You'll find it on Twitter. It's called The Labour Files, I think. Let's find the title of it so you know what to look for. The Labour Files, The Purge, Al Jazeera Investigations. It's on Al Jazeera English on YouTube. And that's the first part was aired last night. It is awful. Tony says, then do something about it. Tony, what do you think I'm doing? What do you think I have been doing for 5 years? I'm informing people of the truth. I am doing something about it. Are you? And Tony's come back with, why complain if you're not going to do something about it? I am. I am doing something. Look, I'm telling thousands of people about it right now. It's all a monopoly, says Rogue. Labour and the Tories hold complete dominion over elections, over our election system. I have been I've been talking about this for the last 5 years, and I've been talking about how we don't really have a choice on anything in this country, and how our democracy is a sham, and how our journalism, the fourth estate, is a sham. There's a guy years ago called Edmund Burke, who was a politician in this country. And when the media were allowed in the House of Commons for the first time, legend has it that Edmund Burke turned to the gallery and said, "In the gallery yonder, you are our fourth estate. You are the estate that holds the other three estates of power. You hold them to account." The media in this country is not the fourth estate anymore. Since Julian Assange was silenced in the Ecuadorian embassy, then a year later dragged out and thrown in Belmarsh for the crime of publishing factual information of war crimes in the public interest, for doing the job of journalism. Since that moment, free speech, journalism, it's been in Belmarsh. It's been in prison. Journalism right now is in jail. Make no bones about it. This is the fight of our lives. This is the fight for truth. Because if he is extradited to America, that's the truth. That's the truth gone with it. Anything that you are told from that point on, you won't know whether it's the truth or not. They will be able to make anything up and pass it on off as true, and everybody will have no choice to believe it because there will be no alternate narrative. There will be nobody there with the documents saying, no, that's not true, because they're going to make releasing those documents, journalism, they're going to make it illegal. And if America can reach into any sovereign country, especially a superpower like the UK, and pluck a journalist out that they don't like, who's published evidence of their crimes, i.e. done what the Washington Post and the New York Times and Der Spiegel and Guardian and the Times and the Mail, all of them are supposed to do, then that's it. We won't know what the truth is going forward. And you have to ask, the one thing that I've looked at over the last few years, knowing just how much that they've lied, the largest amount of lies and misinformation that has come out in the last 5 years, and it is not even close, is from the US government and the UK government, those two. The misinformation that has been spread is incredible. Go and look at my main video on my website. It'll tell you how the UK and the US have employed a a system of propaganda, a misinformation campaign, not on other countries, on their own people. It's a misinformation campaign on their own people to cover up massive crimes. Massive crimes. And I'm talking the supreme war crime in some instances. Bombing a country on the basis of lies. Bombing a country that never attacked you on the basis of lies. Iraq all over again. And that's Syria. These lies led to that. I've documented it over the last 5 years. And the fourth estate, our media, have ignored them. So you have to ask, if this has been going on just for the last 5 years, has it been going on for the last 100? Because we know how WikiLeaks have published stories of such magnitude over the last 15 years, over 1 million documents a year on average, none of which have been proved to be true. They've all panned out. Which media organisation can say that? Which media organisation can say, oh yeah, we've never had to retract anything because everything that we've said, it's checked out? None. Not a single one. But the one that has, right now, they've got the editor and the publisher of it in jail, in the worst jail in Britain. And they've agreed to send him to the country that not long ago planned to kidnap and kill him in the centre of London, and whose indictment is based in part upon the lies of a convicted fraudster and pedophile who spun a bunch of lies to try and get immunity from the FBI and con them into doing it. This is the person that was meant to be the hacker that Julian Assange had asked to hack members of Iceland, proving that he was a hacker and he hacked that material. No, he didn't. He got the material fair and square from Chelsea Manning. It was a leak. It was journalism. There's no difference to what... he did nothing different than the Washington Post and the New York Times and a lot of them are supposed to be doing on a daily basis. And that's my point. They've released all these documents and they've had stories of such massive gravitas over the last 15 years, over 1 million documents a year. If you combine them all, these massive stories, some of them brought down governments in Africa, showing corruption of a scale that is unimaginable. But you have to ask, well, if he's done that on his own in the last 15 years, where was it beforehand? Were the media hiding all of this beforehand? And how much of our history is actually true, if that's the case? Did we win World War II? Did we? Or did we actually lose it and the Nazis won? You've got to start asking big questions like this if you don't believe your media. If you know your media is lying about certain things, and if you know they're en masse colluding with each other to create a false narrative, then how can we know that anything that they say is true going forward? Anything. This is a media, remember, that for 2 years has been telling you, I can't say too much, but it has been controlling the narrative on COVID. Well, anybody who was saying anything adversarial about it, or negative, or something that maybe would go, ooh, don't really want that vaccine, they were silenced and smeared, and now we're finding out that what they were saying actually is coming to fruition. How much do we of our past is true? How much do we know about the wars in the past and what our countries have done in the last 100 years? How much is actually true if they can fabricate and lie en masse about massive stories like the supposed anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and ignore any information that is contrary to that narrative? You have to ask, how long has it been going on? And you also have to ask, if Julian Assange goes, will we ever get it back? I don't think so. I've just come on here for the first time. Wind your knocking, says Tony. Tony, I didn't say anything bad again. Remember, see, people need to stop this. People need to, you ask, what are you doing about it? And I reply, I am doing stuff about it. I've been doing stuff about it for 5 years, stay tuned. And then you've come back with, I just come here for the first time, wind your neck in. Wind your neck in. I didn't say anything bad to you. I said, what are you doing? Why is this adversarial, why the need for the adversarial approach all the time? Am I your enemy? David Cable says, I noticed the British state media propaganda since 2013, 2014. David, I've always kind of known that it was bollocks. I kind of always knew it was bollocks. The news is bollocks. The politics is bollocks. Doesn't matter who you vote for. I always knew that, but it wasn't for the last. I know what you mean there. 2013. It wasn't until I really for the last 5 years. It wasn't until I started that happened in the last 5 years. 2016 election, I think, ever in America, that opened my eyes to it, and opened my eyes to just how badly the media were lying. And I think the thing that really highlighted it to me was Russiagate, and the reporting on Russiagate by the BBC and the Guardian, etc. It's just false. It's just not even based in anything to do with reality. It was so one-sided. It was incredible. There was absolutely no evidence that Donald Trump was elected because he was Vladimir Putin's puppet. Yet that's all they talked about for 5 years. So, yeah. Yeah, there's no need to tell me to wind my neck in, Tony. I wasn't being adversarial or anything. It was just you came at me with, what are you doing about it? I'm talking to the people about it right now. James says, look at the coverage of the Queen's death, nothing but fawning banalities. There is there's a video out there where somebody has overlaid the footage of the Queen's funeral with the BBC's audio of one of I think it was Kim Jong-un's funeral in North Korea. And the similarity is striking. It's, if you could look at the way they covered the Queen's funeral as to the way they cover the North Korean dictator's funeral, they could have done them the same way, but obviously they didn't. They went the opposite way with the Queen. It's kind of incredible. Labour is run by Tories with a niggling concise since New Labour. Blair says Tudor. Yeah, I think you're kind of right there. And David Cable underneath is saying Scotland calls Labour the red Tories since 2013, 2014. Yeah, Labour are done for in Scotland, and they're done for in the north now. Nobody will trust them again. Like I say, it's a party that needs to die. It needs to go away. It's not fit for purpose, and it's plain to see. And the media right now, by not calling it out, are helping prop it up. I'm a big fan of Tony Benn, the late great Tony Benn. And Tony Benn, there's footage of Tony Benn saying that he fears that there is a plan, a conspiracy in the Labour Party. They're planning to try and turn it into the UK's version of the DNC. And you've got to look at it right now and say, mission accomplished. Tony Benn was right, and they've done it. Because they're not a serious political party anymore. They certainly do not represent you. What is the solution, says Mary? Personally, I think that we need a totally... people talk about the Great Reset and how that's a bad thing. Well, I think we need a Great Reset, and we need it. Rather than let the elites do the Great Reset, and the farming and you'll eat the bugs and all that. Why don't we do it? The solution is a total and utter overhaul of not just the political system in this country, but the media for sure, education, policing, Policing, definitely. If you've had any contact with the Metropolitan Police in the last few years, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The Metropolitan Police, I mean, other police forces around the country I'm no big fans of, but I'm not overly critical of, you know. I still realise that we do need the police for certain things, but when it comes to the Met, you've got serious problems there. You've got serious problems because by your own statistics, only 1 in 70 rapists are convicted. And this year and then the last year, there seems to be a lot of rapists in the Metropolitan Police, doesn't there? And if you're convicting 1 or 2 in the Metropolitan Police, that means for every 1 that you convict by your own statistics, 69 get away with it. So if you've convicted 5 people for Metropolitan Police officers for rape, I think it's maybe 4 in the last year, does that mean there's 280 rapists in the Metropolitan Police right now? Because the way they police, the way the Metropolitan Police is not fit for purpose either. They are there to prop up power. That's all they're there for. They're not there to protect the people. They're there to protect power. And the media right now are the power's public relations. That's all they are. The elite's public relations. We need a total overhaul of it all. And that starts with each and every one of us getting active and getting in the streets. I've been doing it for 5 years. Tony, I've been out there. Go and look at my channel. Go and see all the protests I've covered over the last 5 years. I've been at pretty much all of them. I was at Black Lives Matter just as much as I was at, anti-vaccination marches, as I was pro-Brexit and pro-EU marches. I covered them all. I've been going out there and trying to give people the truth because I know that the people on your TV sets are lying to you on a daily basis. They're doing it systematically and they are not going to stop. That's the solution. We need a total overhaul of it, of the political system, of the policing system, of education, the lot. We need to start doing things in the interests of humanity rather than the interests of profit. You look at them down there now. You look at what Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss are doing. It's what you would expect, isn't it? You know, they're doing variations of all the policies that they've done before that got us into this mess in the first place. All the things that they've done over the years. Remember, they were in government. Liz Truss and Kwasi, they didn't spring up from nowhere. They were in government. They had cabinet positions in government, implementing the very policies that got us into this mess. And their answer to the mess that they've got us into, is to continue doing variations of those same policies. This is insanity. It's insanity. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And we've got Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng down there doing exactly that right now. And the media reporting of it as if, yes, they say it's going to get us out of it. So, hey, there's hope there for you. Don't worry about it. You're not going to freeze to death this winter. That's what I think the solution is. I think the solution is we need to get active, and what we need to do. And my missus has a saying. Her saying is chop their heads off. Now, I'm not saying that we need to do that. I'm not, but we certainly need them to be scared of us. The people of a democratic country should not be scared of their government. In a democratic country, the government should be scared of its people. And right now it's the opposite. We need to change this. And if you've got kids, I haven't got kids. I haven't got another generation I need to worry about. After that, when I go, that's it probably. I'm too old now, I think. But if you've got kids, it's their lives that this is all going to affect. It's freedom, it's their freedoms that they're taking away right now. It's their freedom of speech. It's their democracy. It's their right to eat a burger whenever they want. That's what's being taken away. And it's been taken away by an elite that not only caused all these problems, but made an absolute killing while doing it. They tripled their wealth after the 2008 financial crisis that they caused. They tripled it. People had to pay that money back. They didn't. People had to pay it back with massive austerity measures and cuts in public spending. People had to pay it back. And now they're going to do it all over again with COVID. They're going to make people pay it back. They're going to make people pay back the 100 billion subsidy that they're going to give these energy companies that have made trillions since they were privatized. That's what the solution is, if you ask me. I don't trust anyone in this government, whoever is in government, says Christine. It doesn't matter who's in there, whether it's Labour or... The last chance we had was Corbyn, and that's why he was stopped. That's why I'm talking about this today, because he was a threat to that. He was a threat to the establishment. He was a threat to the status quo, and that's why he was stopped from being Prime Minister. That proves to you, it should prove to you, that we don't have a democratic function in this country. Because in a democracy, anybody should be able to be Prime Minister if he is popular enough. And they stopped him with lies and accusations of racism. How sickening is that? The most anti-racist politician this country has ever seen. They labelled him some sort of racist terrorist sympathiser who hated the Jews. And it was the media that did that, remember? The state media. And the BBC is state media, whether Twitter wants to label them as state media or not. Thank you for the roses, Sophia and Mary. That was nice of you. User 928 says, the Labour Files is some damaging stuff. I can't believe how it's not front page news. Well, I mean, it's not. And that should highlight to you just how bad the mainstream media, the old legacy media, is in this country, that it's not. And the reason, of course, it's not, is because they were complicit in it. And we will find out on Saturday, through this documentary, just how complicit they were, especially those in the BBC. Yeah, Labour do be sucking. I agree, Schnibs. I agree. I understand the anger, but worry about angry people's answers to the problems. I love Lazy Susan. Says I love Lazy Susan. Yeah, I'm not angry. Well, I am angry, but I have been for a while. You should see some of my. If you think I'm angry now, you should have seen me in 2017. Go and watch some of my videos in 2017. Go and watch my video when Julian Assange was dragged out the embassy. You'll see how angry I was then. What documentary? The documentary is called The Labour Files, The Purge by Al Jazeera. You can watch it on YouTube. We need to find a way to put those nasty media out of business, says Mary. Yes, I agree. If you go to my website, you can find out ways to support me. I don't get paid for doing this. I've got all my advertising on YouTube. I switched it off. Because I'm not going to jump through their hoops. I'm not having them advertise Israel on my channel. And they silenced me anyway after Julian wrote to me. I don't get much from TikTok. TikTok is you don't get much money from TikTok unless you promote their stuff on their shop, which I don't and I won't. And yeah, support me if you can for £1 a month, £2 a month, whatever. Go to my website. You can find out how to do it. And the same goes for all independent media. There are some great independent media outlets out there that are trusted sources of information. The Grey Zone is fantastic. as are the Convo Couch over in America and Jimmy Dore and the MCSC network, all of which you can find on YouTube. And, you know, my friends over at AM Wake Up and Steve and Craig, you know, there are some fantastic avenues, but unless you know where to look, you won't find them now. And that's indicative of just how much they've shut up, you know, independent media, and they're controlling the narrative. Unless you know who these sources are, you can't find them. You can't search for them and find them. Those avenues have been shut down. This is how much they are controlling the narrative now on what is true and what is not. And if Julian, like I say, if he's extradited, that's it. I don't think we'll ever get the truth back. The truth has gone for good. And I've been screaming about this now for years. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. It needs more people to understand that this is the fight of our time. This is the fight. This is our human rights that are being taken away from us, and your children's human rights. Your children's human rights, your children's right to know what the truth is. That's what's being taken away right now. So yeah, we do need to find a way to put that nasty media out of business, and supporting independent media is the way to do it. I will not go down the advertising route. I think that media based on advertising is stupid. I think you end up like the Independent if you end up doing that, just trying to get people to click on the link just because it's got something about the bloody Kardashians in it. I saw one, I couldn't believe it the other day. And this is honestly a headline from the Independent. And when I first started doing this 5 years ago, 2016, 2017, 6 years ago, I thought the Independent were the best media outlet. It's sort of like saying the tallest kid in class, I know. But I thought it was the best media outlet in this country. This is a real headline from the Independent on the 18th of September. Kourtney Kardashian clarifies she does allow her children to eat fries. That's the level of journalism that the Independent are doing while I'm trying to give you the truth. Now, who do you think gets paid? Do you think I get paid, or do you think journalists at the Independent get paid for publishing that crap? Journalists at the Independent. Katie says, remember that when they say Putin is doing evil? Exactly, Katie. Yeah, I'm not an apologist for Putin. I think what Putin's done in Ukraine is bloody wrong. I disagree with some of my friends in independent media when they say that this isn't a war of aggression. I say bloody well is. Look at what he's doing. But at the same time, I do agree. Well, where's your outrage when we do it? Where's your outrage when we support Saudi Arabia as they do a genocide in Yemen, and we sell them the planes and the bombs to commit those atrocities, those war crimes that we know that are going on with our stuff? Where's, you know, it's quite high. It just highlights the hypocrisy when you just, well, why is it when Putin does it, it's bad, but when America do it in Syria and Israel do it in Syria? Israel bombed Syria last week, just a few days ago, killed like 15 people, hardly covered. You know, when we've been told that there's a genocide going on in China at the moment with the Uyghurs, and they haven't provided us with evidence at all. They haven't provided not one picture of a dead body, none. But there's a genocide going on over there at the moment. Meanwhile, Israel, get this is a statistic that is amazing to me. And I bet you, if you watch mainstream media, you don't realise this either. Since the year 2000, Israel has been responsible for the murder, the death of around 2 children a week. On average, since 2000. 2 children, that's without all the adults they've killed. 2 children, they've been responsible. Oh, well, you know, it's a collateral damage. Oh, really? Really, collateral damage? Well, they've also been responsible for killing a journalist every about 7 or 8 months. For 22 years. They've killed, I think, 36 journalists in 22 years, according to Reporters Without Borders. Where's the outrage? If Putin did that, it would be on the BBC 24/7. You'd have Good Morning Britain. You'd have bloody Holly and Phil talking about it. After they apologise for jumping the queue to the Queen, obviously. But you see my point. But because it's Israel, they get a pass. All governments of this world are just stupid people deciding a right in the future, says Zainab Jamil. I don't think they're stupid, mate. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And that's the scary part. I think they're evil. I think they're maniacs doing things for maniacal reasons. I think John Lennon was right. I think they're maniacs. I don't think they're stupid. I think they're maniacal. And we've got a system where we're guaranteed to get one of them as prime minister. There is no option other than to get a maniac and a liar and a pro-business, pro-banking, pro-global elite, anti-worker, pro-war, anti-free speech person as prime minister. We're guaranteed, with our first past the post system, we're guaranteed to get either Labour or Conservative and the leader of those as prime minister. How's that done for us over the last, 20, 30 years? Just the 20, 30 years. Don't you think things need to change? I do. Should I trust Al Jazeera, really? Here's the rule when it comes to trusting outlets like Al Jazeera and, to a certain degree, RT over in Russia, and CNN, MSNBC, and the BBC, all of them, right? Here's the rule. If they're talking about their own country, they're lying. If they're talking about another country, it's more likely that it's going to be true. And that's the situation. If you want the truth, the most accurate media organisation, mainstream media organisation, for instance, on since 2016 on the Russia election and the Russiagate scandal and that sort of thing, the most accurate TV news channel was Russia Today. So if you want to find out the truth about what's going on in America, go to Russia Today. If you want to try the truth about what's going on in Russia, the chances are you go to BBC, although they're probably going to be lying about that. But if you want the truth about what's going on in Israel, Syria, Al Jazeera is where you go to. But then other things, you have to understand that Al Jazeera is part of, I think it's the Qatari. So there's going to be alliances there. So they're not going to be talking about America in the same way. They're not going to be talking about America truthfully in the same way as they're talking about Israel truthfully. And that's basically, it's really weird. I once heard Abby Martin talk about how when you're trying to filter what the truth is, it's like you're traveling shark infested waters. There's lies all over the place, and these outlets, Al Jazeera is the same for it. But with regards to Al Jazeera reporting on the UK, yes, it can be trusted. And I give you The Lobby. They've done a 3-part documentary called The Lobby on anti-Semitism, anti pro-Palestine stuff in the Labour Party, and basically, Shai Mossad, etc., and the junkets that they were offering Labour politicians for pro-Israel policies in the UK. Yeah, I'm already on Rumble, Billy Wong. I'm already on Rumble, mate. So yeah, we can trust Al Jazeera with regards to this, and also remember, this stuff is based on leaked documents, and they show the documents on the screen, and they highlight all the bits that we need. So we can trust that in this case, it's going to be somewhat true. I keep thinking I'm Tom Jones. Doctor says it's not unusual. It's a good joke, John Hills. Well done. Salim Durrani says, well, sadly, media owners are mostly funded by the establishment. And the sad thing is, when it comes to these, social media outlets like Twitter and Facebook, I mean, we know from the Zuckerberg interview with Joe Rogan he did, Facebook literally took direction from the intelligence services over the Hunter Biden laptop and silenced it based on that. They didn't silence it like Twitter did. Twitter totally silenced it, called it Russian disinformation. But they were taking their cues from the intelligence services in America, and these intelligence services are lying to them. You know, there's there's video of Mike Pompeo saying we cheat, we lie, we steal. We're the CIA. We teach courses on it. This is what they do, and they're the ones who will basically have control over what is true and what is not in the public sphere right now. It has to change. It has to change. We can't have intelligence services dictating what is true and what is not. If intelligence services dictate what is true and what is not, Jeffrey Epstein will end up being a philanthropist billionaire who does wonderful things, and he's a force for good in the country. And Ghislaine Maxwell, well, you know, she's a little bit troubled. If you leave intelligence apparatus to do that, that's what we're going to get. But right now, they are who control these social media companies. And why do they do that? Well, social media companies don't want regulation. They want to be free to do what they want. So, you know, there's sort of a weird thing going on now where social media companies are controlled by state apparatus, by government. They are controlled by government. But at the same time, government is saying, oh, no, we can't step in because it's a free market. And they've got this wonderful, hypocrisy going on that allows them to do whatever they want and face no repercussions. It's kind of like, when you criticize Israel, for instance, and we're criticizing Israel today, why not carry on? It's kind of like when you criticize Israel to a politician, the politician just says, oh, well, for instance, you'll say to a politician, well, they've killed an average of 2 kids every week this century, and they've murdered a journalist every 7 or 8 months this century. What do you say about that? And they'll say, oh, well, we support a 2-state solution. But then you didn't say anything. You just said something blah, blah. But they've got away with it for so long because the media haven't held their feet to the fire, not in the same way I would, or anybody in independent media. People in independent media won't get near them. It really is fake what they're showing people. It's a fake theatre that they are creating, and it's a theatre that has their lives luxurious, while the rest of us will freeze this winter. The weapon New World Order is bigger than any given country or empire. Boris was an example, Trump another. Super Troller says that. I do find it interesting the influence that Bill Gates has over our politics in this country. He flew in a year ago, and the next day, policy on COVID was extended for 3 or 4 months, and then he flew out. He had a meeting with Boris Johnson while he was here in 10 Downing Street with a bunch of other people from the WEF. And then the next time he flies in on his private jet was a couple of months ago, and then lo and behold, the same day he flies in, Rishi Sunak resigns, Sajid Javid resigns, and the next day Boris Johnson resigns. This guy who's buying up farmland in America like there's no tomorrow. This guy who's patenting food seeds. This guy who's jetting around the world telling everybody, what the best thing to do about COVID is. This guy who told Trump, allegedly, From his own mouth, this is Bill Gates admitting it. You can see the footage. MSNBC even did a video on it, although it's been around for a while. My friends over in America have been talking about that footage for a while now. But he basically admits, yeah, Robert Kennedy was advising Trump and asking them to set up a panel to look at the adverse side effects of the jab. And he said, quote, I told him that was a dead end, that would be bad. Next thing you know, Trump doesn't set up that panel. It's a cabal, mate. I do agree. I do agree. It's bigger. The NWO, the WEF. All right. How long have I been going? Hour 15. I've got some stuff to do today, so I better make this quick. Let's go down to the bottom. Have a look. See what you're saying. Salim Durrani says it's the same thing is happening in Pakistan. The whole media is controlled by establishment against Imran Khan. I reported on that, Salim. What happened to Imran Khan was terrible. That was a soft coup. That was a soft coup. The amount of, people from within his party and that coalition he was ruling with that were going in and out of the American embassy in the days before that he was ousted was insane. And what happened to that letter he gave the military, by the way? That letter which basically proved, oh yeah, this is the US State Department basically saying to the coalition members, yeah, you've got to get rid of Imran Khan, otherwise and next thing you know, they withdraw their support. Yeah, America's going around right now saying, oh, you can't do that in Ukraine. That's democracy over there in Ukraine, Putin. Well, didn't you say that? Didn't the Pandora Papers, Ukraine was the most corrupt country in the world? Oh no, forget all about that. But it was like 5 minutes ago. No, forget about that. Send them some more lethal aid. I agree with every word of yours, says John Smith. You are refreshing to hear. John, thank you so much for that. And now you know why I have been silenced so badly over the last few years. It's not because of anything I'm saying that's wrong, and it's not because of anything I say that is untrue. It's quite the opposite. They've silenced me. They've made it so my word can't get out, especially on YouTube, because of the stuff I say that's true and right. And because I'm a threat to that status quo. We've got to tear this down. We've got to. This is humanity that's going to be at stake. We've lost humanity. If Julian Assange goes, that's it. The truth goes with him. Yeah, what happened in Pakistan, Salim, was just, well, I mean, it was blatant, wasn't it? It was blatant. America, well, they're doing this all around the world, and they have done ever since ever since World War II, haven't they? The amount of elections they've meddled in is astounding. I think it's something like 81 in the last 50 years of last century around the world, 81 elections that they either intervened in with a coup. I'll have to look and check that up. Don't quote me on it. But it's an astounding amount. I mean, Biden came out the other day, didn't he? And was labeling, or his State Department was labeling Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba as sort of like the big problem. They're the big problem. That's where all these refugees are coming from. And we need to sort these countries out, because these countries, they're in a dreadful state. And that's why we've got all these refugees at our border. Okay. Why are those countries in a dreadful state? Why is Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba in a dreadful state? Why? But you don't want to answer that question, do you? Because the answer to that question is United States foreign policy. There's a goddamn ring around Cuba. Siege warfare going on with Cuba. Nothing in, nothing out. Sanctioned up the wazoo. Why? Well, because they want everybody to be equal. And they've got a system that they want to do that creates equality. And that's a threat somehow to American hegemony. Because America isn't built on equality. And that's a threat to the elite in America. That, you know, that thread of a good example might transfer over to American society. And before you know it, you've got communists in America who want equality too. That's a serious problem to people who are the lawmakers in America and the elite, because they've loved this gravy train. They're going to sail this gravy train as far as they're going to ride this gravy train as far as they possibly can. And it's a thread of a good example as the reason why Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua are sanctioned up the wazoo. Venezuela, there's a paper written by Jeffrey Sachs, just in 2017, I think this was, in the first 2 years of Trump's presidency, and obviously this goes back to Obama's as well, the sanctions that America put on Venezuela killed 40,000 people. How many's been killed in Ukraine? Is it that many? But the reporting on that is through the roof, isn't it? But the sanctions on Venezuela have killed 40,000. You don't hear a peep. They sanctioned the CLAP program in Venezuela, and I've got friends who have been to Venezuela, so I know what I'm talking about here. His name's Johnny McAvoy, and he works at he works at Declassified as well as works at the Grey Zone, Declassified, Canary. Multiple places have been published. And he has been to Venezuela, but he didn't stop in the posh hotels like the mainstream journalists did. No, he stopped in the barrios. He stopped in the main areas where they're actually trying to do democracy in that country. And that's what America are scared of. They're afraid that, oh, wow, this country is going to have some sort of equality and they're going to nationalize their oil reserves. They've just found out they've got the largest oil reserves on the planet. Did you know that about Venezuela? If you watched the MSN, I bet you didn't. There's 297 billion reasons that America is trying to install Juan Guaido as president of Venezuela, somebody who only 18% of Venezuelans have heard of. There's a reason. There's 297 billion reasons, because that's how many barrels of oil are underneath Venezuelan soil. That's why there's been all these coup attempts. That's why there's so many sanctions. And by the way, those sanctions that killed 40,000 people, 40,000 innocent Venezuelans, they didn't die quickly. Not like people in Ukraine who have a bomb dropped on their head and out like that. And I'm not saying that that's good. It's a bad thing, obviously. But no, they died slowly with sanctions because they couldn't get the food. Because the CLAP program is sort of like the free food that was being dispersed amongst Venezuelans to make sure that they were healthy and they didn't starve. They sanctioned it, America did. So they couldn't get enough food to feed the poor. So it's the poorest that suffer. And they suffer from starvation and illness because they can't get the medicines. Why? Because of sanctions. 40,000 of them died a slow death. The media didn't care a shit. Didn't give a shit. But if a white person dies in Europe, headlines, they are endless on it. And they're not going after Nicaragua and Venezuela and Cuba because of anything those countries have done that's bad. I'm sure they've made mistakes. All governments do. But there's a massive amount of migrants on the southern border of America right now from those countries, not because of those countries' governments, but because of the American governments forcing that country into poverty and into just, they're wrecking them on purpose. So, they can cause civil unrest and maybe get a coup and install their friendly Juan Guaido bloke who will, take a loan from the IMF, and then the IMF will give that money not to Venezuela, but to American companies who will then go in and harvest all the natural resources from Venezuela, stealing it. And Venezuela, like I say, has a lot of natural resources, 297 billion barrels of oil. And I think I'm right in saying that you could lay a pipe from Venezuela to Texas. And I'm right in saying that it's probably about the same distance as the Keystone pipeline that goes from Alberta in Canada to Texas. It goes all the way down. You get one from Venezuela, your fuel needs are over if you're America then, aren't they? It's worth thinking about. All wars are over resources. And they're always built on lies. It's going to kick off this weekend, hopefully. Smash the government out, get Imran Hind, says Mar Hussain. I'll keep an eye out for what's going on there over in Pakistan this weekend. Hopefully there's going to be millions in the street like there were when Imran was first ousted. Thoughts on the Green Party, says Sam Crooks. Okay, my thoughts on the Green Party are this. They're useless. And if you look at the Green Party in Germany, they're worse than useless. They're actually pro-war, amazingly. And strangely enough, their ideas, not so green anymore. Seem to be pro-corporate more than anything. It's not a wonder that all politicians end up sounding the same, no matter which side of the aisle, which party they are with. They all sound the same. And there's a reason for that. Because the same people are pulling their strings. It's a theatre that's being played out in front of us right now. We don't really have a choice on anything. Not really. No, Imran Khan wasn't killed, Green Earthby. No, he was ousted in a soft coup, and that I believe America were behind, and many others do. And there's a lot of evidence that supports that as well. Mar Hussain, so I'm thinking Trump was somewhat decent. Dare I think it? No, don't think that. And don't think that anything I'm saying, because I'm so anti-DNC, don't think that means I'm pro-Trump. It's not. That's the way the powerful would like us to think. They would like us to think, oh, one or the other. No, there are no good guys here, okay? There are no good Republicans. There are no good Democrats. I suppose there's a smattering of them, but the parties are as corrupt as each other. I personally think the Democrats are worse, just simply because they say they represent something that they don't, whereas the Republicans are more honest about it. But they're still terrible. The foreign policy is the same whether you had Obama, Trump, Biden, Bush. Doesn't matter. Bush, 2 wars. Obama, 7. Yes. Bush when Iraq, Afghanistan. Obama expanded that to 7 using the Patriot Act, bombing 7 countries while he was president. Trump took that up to 8 or 9, and I think he's getting on for that now already. And who can forget what the disaster when they pulled out of Afghanistan and the amount of people, innocent people that were murdered there in the withdrawal, and awful scenes of them falling off planes. Don't think Trump was decent. He wasn't. I'd just like to, for anybody who thinks that Trump's a good guy, right? And I know that many of you out there, and me having a go at Trump doesn't mean that I'm pro-Democrat. I hate them. I think they're disgusting, a lot of them. They certainly don't represent the people. I started off this stream talking about how a video that I did that talked about Epstein and Maxwell was banned on TikTok, and I was banned on TikTok as a result of it, and had a ban even though they reinstated the video. For anybody who thinks that, you know, Trump has his hands clean in this, I'd just like to remind you, there are court documents where people have gone to court to say that Epstein and Trump were together doing stuff for them, right? The girl who accused Prince Andrew of what she accused him of, I can't say the word on here because they'll ban me, but the girl, Virginia Giuffre, who accused Prince Andrew of that, was trafficked to Epstein and Maxwell through where? Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's golf course. That's where they found her. That's where she was trafficked to them through, Mar-a-Lago. Trump, who did he appoint as Attorney General? He appointed Bill Barr as Attorney General, correct? Who was Bill Barr's dad? Bill Barr's dad just happens to be the dean of a school that gave Jeffrey Epstein his first job as a teacher when he had no teaching experience whatsoever, teaching, you guessed it, young girls and boys. Donald Trump appointed that. When I say these people are a box of rats climbing all over each other, I have a lot of evidence to back that up. There are no good guys here. There's just bad and absolutely terrible. And they are all in on it. And if ever this comes out, the whole house of cards will come down. And that's why I'm pushing for it so much. Because these people are literally doing whatever they want to your kids. And people seemingly, certainly the media, don't give a crap. They're more interested in, you know, isn't it funny how interested they are in this Iranian woman? Have you noticed the Iranian woman who was beaten by these morality police to death? It's an awful thing. It's terrible. And I don't condemn it at all. It's terrible. What the Iranians doing over there is awful. And rightly, there are people out in the street. But look at the media coverage of it. Look at how they're covering this. Because it's in Iran. This happens on a daily basis in Saudi Arabia, and they don't give a shit. Saudi Arabia is far more oppressive than Iran, in my opinion, and far more dangerous to us than Iran. But they don't say anything negative about Saudi Arabia. In fact, do you remember when they tried to resurrect Bin Salman's MBS's, when he took over, they tried to paint him out as this some sort of, oh, he's going to liberate the country. He's going to bring in women's rights. They can learn to drive. Look how fantastic an opportunity it is now to go on holiday. This is a country with just as strict laws as Iran, probably more so. Yet our media don't say a goddamn thing when anything happens over there, and they behead people for being gay in Saudi Arabia. Our media don't give a shit. This woman was beat by the morality police, yes, and that's terrible, but they're non-stop talking about it in the media in this country. Why is it that some people matter more than others? So was Trump a lesser evil than the lot that are in now? Why am I thinking he was pretty decent? No, he wasn't a lesser evil, Mar Hussein. He wasn't. He was just as evil. The reason they didn't like him so much is because he was honest about it. You know, when you're not meant to say, yeah, we're coming out of Syria, but we're leaving troops in Syria, we're keeping the oil. You're not meant to say that. But they did. And it was true. That's why they didn't like Trump. It's not for the lies he told, and there were many. No, 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 no. They didn't like him because of the truths he told that they would rather, you know, not say out loud. And they are still stealing 83% of Syria's output a day, America are. They are stealing it. I could show you video of trucks leaving Syria right now to sell it for the Americans. But nobody talks about that. But when Putin does that with grain, it's all over the place, isn't it? Hi, buddy, from Sydney, Australia. In Greece, the IMF destroyed Greece, says George Koumis. Yes, they did. They really did. And what they expected Greece to do was impossible. And Yanis Varoufakis, who was the Greece, I think he was finance minister, was he at that time? Great guy. Some of his speeches, you know, he was the finance minister of Greece at that time. And what the EU were demanding was like, he was saying, well, this is going to destroy the country. But they did it anyway. They don't care. They don't care about anybody in the EU. The only thing the EU care about are the people at the top. They don't care about the people at the bottom. They don't care about ordinary people. No, no, no. They care about the people at the top. They care, really. I think the EU, I know other people have thought this, and I think it's correct. I think the EU was just a construct to try and drive Western European wages down to Eastern European levels so it can compete with China on a global market, which is great for countries like France and Germany who have exports, but it's terrible for Italy, Greece, and pretty much every other country. It's awful because you're just basically extracting their workforce and getting nothing in return, and you haven't got a printing press if you're one of those countries either, meaning in times where you need money, you can't print it. And if you can't print it, you can't do anything about inflation. Yeah, what happened in Greece was terrible, and that was the IMF. It wasn't. It was the IMF and the EU together. Trump should have drained the swamp, but tried. But forces were too powerful. Said Maya, saying, "No, I'm not saying he had no intention of draining the swamp." Like I say, look who he employed as his Attorney General. The son of the guy that gave Epstein his first job at a school. A guy who didn't go after the Russiagate scandal. The guy who didn't prosecute anybody who was coming up with the lies on Russiagate. You know, they went along with it. It's a theatre. Same in this country. Child starvation was solved in Venezuela because they made it illegal to put starvation on certificate, says Daniel Finch. Good job saying all this. For most people, it goes in one. The other says no. Daniel Finch, I think you're talking about an allegation made by Jordan Peterson, and starvation was solved in Venezuela because they made it illegal to put starvation on certificate. You got to understand why were they starving? That's the thing. And this is something that Jordan Peterson didn't say in his little video that I noticed on that. I'm assuming that's where you got it from. If not, it's where I sort of know it from. And I'm not condemning. That's terrible if they did that. It's terrible. But you've got to understand Venezuela, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, their whole thing is they want to get from under the boot of American foreign policy. They want to have their people determine. You know, they want to have self-determination of people. They want to run their own country and use their own resources the way they see fit. What's wrong in that? Well, America won't let them. And America will sanction them. And that's why they're starving. And then, when people starve and die, American journalists will then use those statistics in their headlines to say, look how terrible Venezuela is, to push even more sanctions and push for regime change even more. And that's the way Venezuela will look at it. That's the way the Venezuelan people, the Venezuelan government will look at it. So I can understand why they would do that. No, let's stop registering the figures then, because Americans are using it in their propaganda. He never said, did he, Jordan Peterson? And if you have seen that, if you didn't get that statistic from Jordan Peterson, go and watch that video that he brings that up, because he never touches on why people in Venezuela are starving. And there's no doubt about it, Venezuelan government, they're not perfect. They're not. But would they be starving? Would those people be starving if it wasn't for the American sanctions and the Americans sanctioning their CLAP program and extraditing a director of that CLAP program to America and throwing him in prison because he was in Africa trying to get around those sanctions? Those little bits of information are important, aren't they? Calvin! Oh, Truth Frontline Crew London. Hi Calvin, how you doing, mate? Hope I'll see you again. Unfortunately, the UK government has killed UK citizens with austerity and sanctions. Yeah, the UK government sanctions itself. Yeah, we also, by the way, stole their gold. Venezuela, and it's not just Venezuela's gold, it was mined in Venezuela as well. We said no, Juan Guaido's president now. So he owns that 1.2 billion pounds worth of Venezuelan gold that we've got in our vaults. Personally, I don't think we've probably got that gold. I think we've probably sold it to cash for gold to pay for Brexit. And that's the reason why we won't give Venezuela it. But, we'll see, I suppose. Green Party don't support the man in Belmarsh, says Calvin at Truth Frontline. I've questioned the UK Greens about it. That says it all, doesn't it? How often has Caroline Lucas talked about Julian Assange in the House of Commons? How often have the Greens made statements about Julian Assange? None of them have they? None of them have. It's only individual politicians, and Caroline Lucas isn't one of them. I've certainly never seen her at any of the Assange stuff. I've seen Corbyn. I've seen Burgeon. I've seen Absalma Begum. Never anybody from the Green Party. And you would think that of all the parties, the Green Party is the one that's most against war, wouldn't you? If it's the Green Party, I mean, what's worse for the environment than war? And, the largest polluter on the planet is the American war machine. It's the American military. But they never call that out, do they? It's like old, what's her face? Greta Thunberg. She hasn't figured that out yet, has she? In all of her speeches, she never criticises the American foreign policy or the American armed forces, the American army, which is the largest polluter on the planet. And the anti-pollution princess, Greta Thunberg, has never called them out on it, ever. You need to spend some time in school, Greta, if you're not calling that out, because obviously you don't know really what's going on in the world, do you? Trump divided the people. Not only that, he divided politics for a long time, says Billy A. Flowers. I would suggest, I don't disagree with you, Billy, but I would suggest that it's not Trump dividing the people. It's the Democrats and Republicans. It's the elites. It's power that is dividing people. It's not just Trump. It's all of them. They're creating a division in people to keep you fighting with each other so they can carry on taking off with all the money and all the power like they have done all of yours and my lives. And the internet, as the genie is out of the bottle. The internet is shining a light on all these inconsistencies and these lies and this theatre that's been played around us. The information's come out now, and they're desperately trying to keep a lid on it and to keep that genie back in the bottle with this increasing censorship. And it's not just Trump, it's all of them. They are all trying to divide us. A Trump supporter, if you're a Democrat in America, if you're a liberal or you're left-leaning, Trump supporters are not your enemy. They're your friend. If you went and spoke to them, you would agree with 98% of what you talk about. I guarantee you they will. 95%. The worst person, 90%, you'll agree with them. So why is it that the 90% that you agree on, the anti-war, the reform of the police, all of these things that you agree on are not getting discussed? But what is getting discussed is the things that you don't agree on. Women's rights to choose and gun rights. That's really all you hear about, isn't it? And the division, because that's divisive. The 95% that you agree on that you're not getting, nobody wants to talk about that. It's interesting. So yeah, although Trump did divide the people, Billy A. Flowers, I agree. Both sides do that. And people need to stop looking at this false duopoly that we've got in the West, with Labour and the Conservatives over here and the Democrats and Republicans over in America. And they need to start looking at both of these things as the problem and the system really that keeps them, that props them up and gives them power. That's what we've got to attack. US presidents are all PR people for the elite in the current system, Kenny Ken. If we had a different system, then somebody could arise and through the ranks who was for people and not for the elite. But at the moment, we've got a system that just will not allow anybody who is a threat to that system to become powerful. Look at what they did with Corbyn. And all the reporting that I've done over the last 5 years, I feel as if it's being vindicated now. I feel as if everything I've said is okay. I knew it was true all along. But now we're seeing the actual documents come out and the proof in this Al Jazeera documentary that, yeah, it was all a scam. And allegations of anti-Semitism were exaggerated by factions within the Labour Party and their friends in the media to kneecap Jeremy Corbyn and ruin his chances of being Prime Minister. That's anti-democratic. It stinks. Personally, I think people should go for jail for it. You could argue, well, we won't go too far. You could argue that. There certainly needs to be some sort of repercussion because people's lives were ruined. There's one guy in that Al Jazeera documentary. Like I say, you've got to watch it. There were threats against his family. He was threatened to be beheaded multiple occasions. They threatened to dig up his mom and do stuff for her. His father had to read. His father read those things. And this all comes from the grassroots sort of organisation for the Israeli lobby that the MPs and people on the board of the NEC support. Trump effed up saying they were leaving and didn't even put a false pretense on saving people, says Oliver Whitworth. Exactly. And also, he could have pardoned Julian Assange and he could have pardoned Edward Snowden with a stroke of a pen. But he never did. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about whether he was really fighting or not? He didn't pardon Assange or Snowden, but he did pardon literal murderers before he left office. The worst kinds of people that, prosecutors had to work for years to put away. He pardoned them, but he didn't pardon Assange. It's telling, isn't it? And he gave Jerusalem to the Israeli Zionists. Correct, Kenny Ken, you are correct. You hate Democrats as a whole. That's like saying you hate a race or a gender. No, it's not. No, it's not. Give me a good Democrat. Give me who do you think is a good Democrat, Stacey M? And I'll give you their record. Think AOC is a good Democrat? What's she done? What's she done? Has she organised? Has she done any grassroots organising? She co-sponsored any bills that have, has she called for Julian Assange's release? Didn't she vote? No, that's right. She couldn't even vote against 3.8 billion of taxpayers' money going to Israel every year to fund their Iron Dome. She couldn't even vote against that. Do you remember? This is why I hate them. They're meant to be the people, I hate the Republicans too, don't get me wrong. I think they're both terrible. I think the system itself is sort of creating these people that are not in it for our best interests. They're in it for theirs. And they're in it to prop up power. I can't see why calling them Democrats is like saying I'm racist or like saying I hate race or gender. That's mate, stop lying. Everyone against Trump, but no facts. Boring, says MUFC 952. How am I against Trump? And I've just given you loads of facts with regards to Bill Barr, with regards to Virginia Giuffre, traffic through Mar-a-Lago. Just giving you loads of facts. What about Biden, you mad lefty, says MUFC. MUFC, before you start, I can see that you've written quite a few things now, that you've joined this chat and you've caught, obviously, me saying some stuff about Trump. And now you're saying, what about Biden, you mad lefty? Okay? This is worrying. Okay? What about Biden, you mad lefty? His son's question mark. Just like 20 minutes ago, we were talking about Hunter Biden, the laptop, his Ukraine. Just because I'm saying some stuff bad about Trump, that doesn't mean I love Biden. Does it? I'm critical of both. Please go and watch my stuff before you come at me with any aggressive stuff or anything like that. Otherwise, Titch is just going to mute you. I'm here for a conversation. I'm here to talk, and I'm here to be civil with people. And I'm here to try and get to the root of problems and the facts, and not be a cheerleader for one side or the other. And just because I'm against one person, that doesn't mean I'm pro the other side, and vice versa. Hope you understand that. This division is what they want, MUFC. For you to act like that to somebody who, honestly, if you talk to me, you would find out I'm an ally of yours. They want you to talk to me like that. They want you to come on this stream and think that anybody who says anything bad about the person you like is an enemy of yours. Don't fall for it. You're falling for a trap, and they're dividing you, and they're making you think that allies of yours are an enemy. And now you're calling me a mad lefty because I haven't talked about Biden when I literally had a 10-minute conversation about him during this very stream. I agree with everything else you say, but come on, hate is hate at any level. Okay, Stacey M, I'll agree with you on that. See, I'll agree with you. Hate is the wrong word then. Hate was too strong a word. I despise the Democrats because they say they stand for things that they don't. How's that? Despise? Is that better? I despise the Democrats because they say they stand for something that they don't. How's that? Hate is too strong a word. I agree. Yeah, it's terrible. MUFC, I'll agree with you there. It's mad what's happening with Biden. Have you seen the latest? The guy is shaking hands with people who aren't there. It's, my friend Steve says we live in an effing cartoon, and you've got to look at Biden and think, yeah, there's a good case for that. Do you see what I mean now? I'm agreeing with you. Just because somebody says something bad about Trump, that doesn't mean you should go and attack them. Just because you like Trump. Maybe they've got some information that you aren't privy to. Information like he hired Bill Barr, and Bill Barr's dad was the guy who gave Jeffrey Epstein his first job as a teacher at a girls' school. He didn't pardon Julian Assange. He didn't pardon Snowden. One side is not any better than the other here. I hope I'm making that clear. Billy A. Flowers, I think Trump's the only one president in this century who hasn't went to war. He bombed Syria along with the UK and France based on lies. Based on lies. That is the supreme war crime. His the drone bombings under Trump went through the roof. They were bad enough under Obama and Bush, but Trump took them to another level. He literally took the shackles off. The amount of people that were bombed by drone under Trump's presidency was insane. Trump dropped the Moab, remember. Let's not, create some sort of fiction here that he's some anti-war president. His instinct, I will agree, was not to go to war. But when he pressed that button, he went all the way. Make no bones about it. He was not anti-war. If he was, he would have pardoned Assange. What do you think of Liz Truss, says DiMartini? I'm glad you asked that, El DiMartini. I don't want to jump on the bandwagon of, pointing fun at Liz Truss, because it's so easy. There's so much material there. And I think when it comes to Liz Truss being Prime Minister, I'm kind of glad, because I think there is a general feeling now in the country that, okay, this has gone as far as it can go. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel now. After 12 years of the Tories, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel now of what politics in this country is. If the only choices you've got left now are Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, then something's seriously wrong. You know what I mean? I think she is much the same as other politicians in that she'll do what you want as long as you were the last person in the room with her. Everything, when you actually look at the policies that she's done so far, it's all trickle down economics. It's all we're going to scrap the bankers' bonuses. We're going to chop down the lot. They've even today in that I saw they've even abolished the 25% tax rate for the people over 150,000 corporation tax rate for companies making over £150,000. I mean, they're just looking after their friends, Liz Truss, it doesn't matter who's in there, does it? I did an article a few weeks ago. It doesn't matter who the Prime Minister is, and it doesn't. The system will give us the same thing no matter what. And that's what we need to change. I would really appreciate if you personally interview Imran Khan, says Salim. I'd love to. send him an email, see if he'll accept. I don't think he will. He knows who I am. I'd love to. He sounds great. What do you think will win the Italian elections and why? Jess Jeepback says that. I don't know. I don't know too much about the stuff that's going on in Italy at the moment. There's a lot of stuff about the F word going around with certain factions over there. I will have to educate myself on it before I can give you an opinion, I'm afraid, Jess. I'll be as honest as certain other countries around the world I would be able to talk to you for hours about. Italy's not one that I really have much. I haven't read too much history on. I don't know much about it. I could tell you about Syria. I could tell you about Iraq. I could tell you about Libya, about Yemen, about Saudi Arabia, about Ukraine, about all. But Italy's not one that I have a large. There's a great journalist called Stefania Marizzi, and I'm sure she's doing stuff on the Italian elections right now. I would get all my information from her. Gordon, what do you think will happen to Iran now, says Sarah? Well, I think the JCPOA is done for, but I mean, that's something else Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, remember? You could argue that was a good thing, but let's remember it was Trump that pulled out of the JCPOA. It wasn't Iran that reneged on it. Iran went along with the JCPOA, even to the point where in the JCPOA, if in the JCPOA, I think I'm correct in saying if it's in the JCPOA to say that if America was to do certain things, certain negative things against Iran, then Iran could then start enriching uranium at a higher level. It's in the JCPOA. Richard Medhurst was the one who came up with that fact, and he's pretty accurate on it. So everything Iran was doing was still stipulating to the JCPOA, even when the media for the last few years was saying no, the JCPOA is dead, and it's almost as if they were saying Iran had violated it when they weren't. Even though enriching uranium at a high level was in accordance with the JCPOA, because it was written in there that if America left, this is what they could do. You didn't get that reporting on our media. I'm hoping to see some sort of uprising from Iranians. I'm hoping that we're going to see a real sort of Iranian revolution, not an Islamic revolution, which we had in 1979. That's where the history books, if you talk to anybody in the West on the media, will start, by the way, 1979. They'll start with the hostages, the American hostages in Iran, the people from the embassy. They'll start there. They'll start with Iran taking people hostage in the US embassy. They'll start there. They won't start. They'll show you pictures of before 1979 of women walking around without covering on their head. And they'll show you that. But they won't show you a brutal savak, a brutal secret police killing and murdering and torturing at the behest of the Shah, who was a Western puppet, who was installed for 26 years prior to 1979, after Churchill and Eisenhower and the CIA ousted Iran's first democratically elected president, Mohammad Mossadegh. On lies, by the way. The whole thing. Ousted him in a coup based on lies. It's called Operation Ajax. They won't talk about those 26 years. They won't talk about the reason that they overthrew Mossadegh, the democratically elected leader, the first and only, I think it is. They won't talk about them ousting. Why? Because he wanted to privatize Iran's oil. And BP, at the time they were in Iran, it was called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, the AIOC, which was a subsidiary of BP. They were stealing all the oil on behalf of the British. And Churchill was like, oh, I really can't have that now be nationalised. I'll go to the World Court. So he took them to court. He went to the World Court. They wouldn't do anything. So what did he do? They did exactly the same thing as they're doing to Cuba and have been doing. They basically siege warfare. They stopped anything going in and out. And then they, obviously that causes unrest. They feed the extreme views in society to cause unrest, to oust the leader, which happened. Installed the Shah, who ruled Iran for 26 years like an iron fist until the Islamic Revolution in 1979, which is where the history books start in the West. They don't talk about the previous quarter of a century where Iranians were brutalized by a secret police and a Western-backed dictatorship. So I'm hoping for some sort of revolution in Iran, and I'm hoping that more liberal ideas come to the fore, and I'm hoping that women can, and this oppression does stop of women all over the world. But if you're talking about the woman in Iran right now, and the women in Iran taking off their hijabs and wanting to take off their hijabs, and you're making a big deal out of that, and you haven't been making a big deal about people in France being forced to take their hijabs off, then I'm going to ask a few questions as to regards to your fairness of reporting, because I don't think you're doing this for the best reasons. That's what I hope is going to happen to Iran and Sarah. I hope there's going to be some sort of revolution. I oppose human rights abuses, and I oppose censorship, and I oppose oppression wherever I see it in the world, not just when I see our supposed enemies doing it. Pakistan and Afghanistan have one of the largest reserves of rare earth materials for future. Yeah, I mean, wherever the American war machine is, you can guarantee there's going to be resources in that country. I can guarantee it. I remember a few years ago, you might remember, it was under Trump, for those Trump supporters in the chat. There was an instance where I think it was 3 servicemen were killed in Niger. And I remember there were jokes at the time saying, oh, God, don't let Trump read that out off an auto cue, Don't let him read Niger off an auto cue. But they were killed. And you only had to scratch under the surface. Rachel Maddow did a whole video about it and blamed Trump for it, which was incredible. She basically said that these 3 servicemen that were killed in Niger died because of Trump's Muslim ban. They said basically because Trump banned these Muslim countries from entering the US. One of the countries was Sudan, Chad. One of the countries was Chad, and Chad ended up on the Muslim list because they ran out of the right kind of paper. I shit you not, this is a Rachel Maddow statement. She said that these 3 servicemen were killed in Niger because Chad ran out of the right kind of paper to give America an example passport. And because they didn't do that, they ended up on the Muslim ban. And because they ended up on the Muslim ban, Chad withdrew their super duper forces from Niger, and there was no cover for the Americans, and that's why they were killed. And it was all Trump's fault. You scratched under the surface. You saw, okay, what's the job titles of the servicemen that were killed? Well, one was a geologist, and the other one was a radiographer. They were looking for resources. They were over there in Niger looking for resources. That's what they were doing, to steal. And somehow Rachel Maddow blamed that on Trump and his Muslim ban. It was incredible. But that's why she got the big bucks, and that's why she was the #1 show in America. See? Name UFC. Did you see that? I just said something good about Trump. I defended Trump then. Did you see that? Remember that. When it's the right thing to support somebody, I will support them. On principle, though. Not because I like them. Whether I like them or not is irrelevant to me. It's the principle that matters. It's good to see you again, man. Where have you been, says Mojo? I was banned by TikTok, mate. They banned me. They banned me for 7 days because I did a video that they said went against the rules, but then they reviewed it and said, no, it wasn't against the rules. Slapped a sensitive label on it, though, even though I said nothing sensitive. And, yeah, kept me banned for 7 days. So, yeah, that's where I've been. I will say this, please, if you are in the UK, especially if you are in anywhere near London, on the 8th of October, there is a demonstration in London on behalf of Julian Assange. We are going to hold hands and encircle Parliament on the 8th of October. If you can, please go to the Assange Defence website and sign up and come down. We need at least 5,000 people. I think about 3,500 have signed up already. Let's circle Parliament and let's get them scared of us. We need these people scared. We need governments to be scared of their people, not the other way around. And then we might get some change, you know? British Empire used the same strategy, divide and conquer. Yeah, this didn't come out from spring up from nowhere. Oh wow, my coffee's gone cold. I've been talking for that long. So attack voters. No, don't attack voters. Voters are not your enemy. And people who vote for the other side are not your enemy either. Trump voters, they're not your enemy. They're just voting based on the information that they have at hand. They just haven't got all the information. If they did, they wouldn't be voting for either of them. They'd be tearing this down. They'd be voting for Julian Assange. They'd be forcing people to do stuff for Julian Assange. And, you know, an end to the wars, etc. I mean, you've got to ask, haven't you? Why didn't he pardon Assange? You've got to ask, why didn't he? If he's really fighting these people and he's such a crusader and he's not scared, why didn't he? You know, if Assange has the information that could bring them all down, why didn't he? Is it because he'd be brought down too, along with them all? I wrote a book about Russiagate, defending Donald Trump, saying Russiagate was nonsense. He's not Vladimir Putin's puppet, it's nonsense. But he might go to jail, but then probably not. Actually, it said in that book he definitely won't go to jail, not might. Definitely won't go to jail. Why? Because the only thing that they could send him to jail for were the financial irregularities, and if they go after him for that, then they've all got those skeletons in their closet, you know. But it looks like they're going to end up doing that now with. I said in that book they were probably going to go after him for financial irregulations, and look what they're doing right now. They're going to go after him for enhancing his worth way above what it actually was. It looks like that's what they're going to do, and probably tax evasion. Joe, do you think you're being watched by big tech and possibly getting cancelled at some point? Yes. Yeah. In an answer. In a short answer, yeah. I Love Lazy Susan says Assange is a dirtbag, endangered life. I Love Lazy Susan, that's an informed opinion. He didn't endanger lives. He didn't. Please listen to me. Please listen to what I say. Go online and check it out. Okay? Assange received leaks from Chelsea Manning, who was Bradley Manning at the time, and published them in the public interest with redactions. He didn't endanger any lives. In the trial where the US government prosecuted Chelsea Manning for those leaks, because it's against the law to leak information, it's not against the law to publish it. That's the job of a journalist. But Chelsea Manning broke the law. In that trial, the US prosecutors admitted that nobody's life was endangered. There is video, it was released by Project Veritas, of Julian Assange way back before, while all this was happening, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, of him urgently ringing up Hillary Clinton's Secretary of State Department and saying, emergency. These documents are out there. It's not us, but there's another website out there that's going to publish them unredacted. There's footage of him ringing up Hillary Clinton to say this is emergency. He didn't endanger lives. Somebody else published those. Well, he worked, remember, with The Guardian. We're talking about the Afghanistan and Iraq logs, okay? Where you're saying he's endangered lives. He worked with The Guardian to release those. Journalists at The Guardian had those unredacted files that were released, okay? The reason that they were released was Luke Harding in The Guardian wrote a book, and in that book, he published the password to the unredacted files on the internet, and that's how they were released. Wasn't Julian Assange. It was Luke Harding and The Guardian that did that. Please don't repeat things like that unless you have the evidence to back it up. All I know is Pamela Anderson might be a better president, says Mojo. I agree. Pamela Anderson is wonderful. And she's a real supporter of Julian Assange, and I really appreciate that. I just can't say I hate any group as a whole, says Stacey M. Okay, I apologise for saying I hate all Democrats. I don't. I hate the Democratic Party. How's that? All right? I love Lazy Susan. You think you're smarter than everyone else? No. I don't think I'm smarter. I'm just informed. And to be this informed, it takes a lot of time and effort. It's like 16 hours a day for 6 years without getting paid. Don't you think that deserves a little bit of slack and a little bit of, support? Rather than to say that I'm smarter than I think I'm smarter than everybody else, just because I took something that you said that wasn't based in fact and gave you the facts behind it. Why say I think I'm smarter than I'm not? My whole point is I'm an idiot in the Midlands on benefits, and I can still do a better job than the entire mainstream media put together. That's the whole point of my channel. Is to say, I'm an idiot, and I still can outdo them on this. It's kind of sad, really, when somebody, I try to speak with the highest. I try to be as respectful as I possibly can. I know I sometimes, like when I said I hate all Democrats, I don't mean that. It's just a slip of the tongue almost. I hate the Democratic Party because they say they stand for things that they don't. But I do wish that people would. I'm trying to come from a respectful place here, and I'm trying to bring people together. I don't want to divide people. I want to show you all that you are all being lied to. I want to show you all that this is all a theatre that's been played out for their benefit, to keep you, to treat you like mushrooms, to keep you in the dark and feed you on bullshit. But hey, I just think I'm smarter than everybody else, right? It's sad. The guy trusts Russia Today and Al Jazeera over the BBC. That's not what I said, is it? I love Lazy Susan. And now you can obviously you're just trying to think of things to hate on me. I didn't say I trust Russia Today and Al Jazeera over the BBC, did I? I didn't. I said I trust their reporting on what's going on in the UK more than the BBC, and I trust the BBC more than I trust RT on what's going on in Russia and vice versa in Qatar. That's what I said. No, it's okay, Stacey. I understand. I just, the Democratic Party, it's just, the Democratic Party, Republicans have always been horrible, haven't they? They've always been horrible. But it was only in the last 5 or 6 years, it was 2016, it was after 2016 when I realised, these are two wings of the same bird. These two parties, it's just a theatre. They don't care who wins. They really don't. Republicans, Democrats, they don't care who's in power. They would rather it be themselves, great. But if it's the other side, then that's fine. as long as it's nobody actually working for people, because then their whole gig would be up, wouldn't it? Assange redacted heavily, insisting on it in his call that Gordon talks of. Assange was blown off, says Yesemite. This is very true. Go and watch the video if you don't believe me. You're saying that he endangered lives. He didn't. Go and watch the video. It's on Project Veritas Assange Clinton call. Just type that in. You'll find it. And you'll see what I'm talking about is factual. I really try not to talk about things that I don't know about. Somebody asked me about Italy, the Italian elections earlier. I'm not going to bullshit. I could give you informed opinions. I've heard other people. I've heard their opinions on what's going on. But I'm not going to repeat that to you because I haven't investigated it myself. And the last content, and this is the last question on the last thing I'm going to the last comment rather I'll take, because I've been live for over 2 hours now. Daniel Perkins 259 says the Republicans and Dems aren't in power at all, only the monopolists. And yeah, since American independence, he says that just they were monopolists in slavery and tobacco. You can go back, quite some time here, can't you? We need radical change. I concentrate a lot on America because anything America does, we follow, because we are their little bitch over here in the UK. And that's where I feel the problem is. We had 4 years, didn't we, of Brexit. We had a few years of Brexit. And, we got to take our sovereignty back, and we need to take our sovereignty back from the EU. Our sovereignty was never in the EU. Our sovereignty is in Washington. And that's why Julian Assange is in prison. All right. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. Please support independent media. Go to my website. Please sign up to my mailing list, and we'll keep in contact in future through there, because I don't know how long I'm going to have these platforms to talk to you on. They will shut me down at some stage. They've already shut down my growth and shut down the amount of money I can get. Eventually they're just going to turn me off altogether. But if you support me, I'll keep doing it. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Please support independent media. Go through to my website, sign up to the mailing list. And yeah, please understand that people who support the opposite political party, they are not your enemy. People who support Trump are not your enemy. We need to talk, we need to communicate, and we need to understand that the way that we are going to fight back against this is by actually coming together on what we agree on. Those things that are being ignored while they talk about the things we don't agree on to keep us divided while they keep taking the money and the power. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. I won't leave TikTok, Evil Israel. I won't, but they will ban me at some stage. Love you all. Thank you. Take care.